Glad to see you guys here today. And I want to let you know this is going to be a life changing conversation today. We have John Cuomo with us, and we're going to be talking about him today. And he is going to talk about modern leadership in modern times that is going to help you develop more success, more ability to achieve and react and be productive. That's going to be today's show, and we'll be right back. Welcome to the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. This is what you're on today. This is the Coffee Break Show. I'm Vickie Helm. Today's guest is John Cuomo, and we are going to just welcome you to the show first. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you, Vickie, so much. I really, really appreciate it. I'm super happy to be here. Thank you.
You know, I was thinking before we got live today, I was thinking, okay, how am I going to move the show? And now I am I can't wait to geek out on this and unpack everything. But I want for you to share. I know that you have been a firefighter, you've been a paramedic, you've actually been like the chief of paramedics or something like that. You've written a book. You're writing another book right now. You have so many successes in place, so many things that you do that is to help the world. And you found this one key thing that we're going to be talking about today that has helped you gather all this success. And I was like, how did you even start on this? How did you get to the point where you were, a career in serving humanity is what it is?
Yeah, Vickie, it's I didn't have the regular normal path that most take like they wanted to be once since they were a kid. I didn't know much about the fire service. It's kind of a long, drawn out story. My wife says it's old and boring, so I won't bore you with the details. But essentially, the economy took a hit. I was an electrician, and I needed a job because I wanted to raise a family. I needed a job that was more stable. So I started applying at different government jobs, the post office, the phone company, things like that. And when I applied at the fire service and I went to fire school, I literally absolutely fell in love with it. This was what I knew I had to do for the rest of my life. The ability to go and help people and in all different ways was just, it's hard to explain. I just literally fell in love. So that got me into the fire service. But as everyone, I'm sure, who's ever gone to college knows, for a career, once you get out of college, you learn all these things and you get into your career and you're like, wait a minute, it's nothing like what I learned in school, so now you have to learn everything all over again, the way they want it done, so I got into the service and I was trying to figure things out and I was enjoying what I was doing. But then I noticed I opened up my book with a call when I was very, very young in the service. I got hired when I was 21.
Yeah,
And
that is young.
I'm running along the beach. My officer sent me down the beach to see if something had washed up on the beach. And I get there and there's a crowd and I walk up and what looks like a missile is sitting on the beach. And my stomach dropped. I didn't know what to say, what to do. All these people are looking to me like, oh, what are we supposed to do? And it took me some time to recollect. I called back my officer on the radio and I said, this is the situation. He didn't believe me.
Okay, we're just going to stay with you right here. Something froze, and it's kind of frozen right now.
He's
And I hear you talking.
Coming to see.
Okay, we're losing you here right now. I'm not sure why that is, but you're frozen on our end. And we're getting about every other word. So you're going to have to, there you go.
Sorry.
Now it's popped back in. No worries. So here's where you left off that we heard, the
I
audience heard.
apologize.
You're on the beach, you call your supervisors and you tell them there's this,
Okay.
missile hanging out on the beach. And
so I
okay, John, it's happening again.
recognized I was lost. I didn't know what I was thinking, what to do at that moment. And I didn't. Oh, is this?
Well, it's just breaking up again
Screen.
on your side. Everything is up on our side. So your internet is being wonky on your side. We're just gonna
I
move past it.
apologize.
Don't worry about it. We're keep going.
Apologize.
Just gonna keep going. This
Yeah.
is this is
Okay.
authenticity right here. This is what happens when you go live, everybody. This
Yeah.
is why I like live, because
Yeah.
live is everything. It's all the good, the bad, and the ugly all rolled into one.
Yeah.
So, John, you've got all these people. You've got this, you don't know if the bomb is live or not.
Right.
You just know there's a missile on the beach. Your superiors are like, "Are you kidding us,
Yeah.
man?" And you don't know what to do. And I know that so many people get to the point where they don't know what to do. So, what did you do next?
So I gained a little composure and I recognized that these people were looking to me for help. So the first thing I did was look for their safety. So I had them moved off the beach. I called in for police backup to help us cordon off the area. And then my officer arrived and we tried to figure out what it is. It ended up being what it was a dummy missile from the Navy that they would shoot up and then they shoot another missile to for practice. This one they must have missed and it floated up on the beach. But what it did for me is it made me recognize that it doesn't matter what I look like if I have the captain's hat on or the firefighter's hat on. Those people on the beach, those people we respond to, they're looking to me to find the answer to their issue. And just like what's happened with this internet connection right here, you never know. Where you walk in, you think you're seeing something, and it's something completely different happens. So all of a sudden, on the fly, you have to figure out how to go with it. And so I thought to myself at that moment, I need to learn how to lead better, because individuals are looking at me to do so. So I opened up by looking at other officers and then reading many, many books on leadership. And that's what started my process into writing this book eventually.
This is really a cool way of looking at this. And I see you guys on. Do me a favor, if you want to ask him a question, write it down below and I'll pop it up for him. But what this is so important today when I look at the world, because it's the world has changed and our attitudes have changed and our fears are different than they were. 20 years ago, your fears were different than they are now. And one of the things that I think is the most important thing that we can do right now is achieve new leadership skills or stronger leadership skills. There's so much uncertainty. There's so much ahead of us that everybody knows. There's AI coming in. There's more weather calamities that are coming in. In fact, John, I just read a statistic that was out, and it said over the last 50 years, that natural disasters had
Oh,
tripled over that,
yeah.
and it's expected to do that again over another period of time, probably more than that. So there is so much unexpected happening in the world. And the truth is, for me, the only way to get through the unexpected is to get to the point where you are practicing leadership skills so that you have a toolbox for whatever unexpected is happening. It's not just about having insurance right now. There is, you know, the type of leadership where EMS people learn to just lay down their life for their fellow humans or save the day when you get there. But until it happens, all you have is a set of leadership tools. I'm kind of curious, what are your top 3 favorite leadership tools? And what kind of leadership tools do you think right now is pertinent in the world? Like if you have leadership skills in this area, this area, this area, it's the most helpful. And here are my 3 favorite leadership tips.
Well, maybe I can incorporate them as I go along. And I will start with the word humility. Now, this may sound counterintuitive. How could I be a leader and be humble? That doesn't sound right. People are going to walk all over me. Well, that's a misunderstanding of the word of humility. When you're a humble individual, you always know there's something for you to learn. There's always something out there you need to get better at, train better at, and you never stop improving. You have conversations with others. You don't know all the answers. You sit and listen to them. What is going on? How can I draw you out? You're not sitting there dictating to them. You're actually drawing them out, learning from what's going on in their mind, and then helping them to proceed from that point. So I think humility is kind of a huge thing. And as I was studying this, is quite interesting. I came across military leaders that people will, like, for instance, the American sniper, uh, Kyle, I forget his name, but he's the greatest American sniper.
Mhm.
He talks about in his book that humility, the best officers he had were the humble
Yeah.
ones. And so I ask, could you lead a man like this, an individual, this warrior, into a battlefield? Well, you couldn't unless you were humble. That's what he was looking for,
Yes.
because he
Yeah.
wanted to know that you didn't think you knew everything. Because in life, as you're saying, things are changing so much. We can't possibly walk into the next day thinking that we know what's going to happen. And that's one of the things the fire service sets us up for, because I don't care what you get called for. You'll get called for something like, oh, a person down. You get there, there's like a major car accident with 5 people laying on the floor. And you're like, whoa, this is not what the call was about, and you have to learn how on the fly how to fix things.
Yeah.
And then you make mistakes at the same time. Humility allows you the ability to say, you know what? I'm really sorry. I made that mistake. Let's learn from that. How did I affect you in that way? And you know what humility does when you do that? It draws people to you. They want
Absolutely.
to follow you. They want to say, this individual is a
Yeah.
person. He's training. He's trying to learn. He knows he doesn't know everything. He's humble enough to admit his mistakes. These are the very, very important things. So I like humility for both as a leadership skill, as I said to you, and also as you were asking, how we can, unite people throughout. Another thing I think is very important is training. You can never stop training, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever you want to lead. The fire service, for example, we also do the medical. So everybody here in South Florida, where I work, has to be a paramedic as well. Now
Oh,
you're getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're affecting this person. They're having chest pain or something. You have to put all these machines on them. You have to be able to read the machines, determine what kind of drugs that they need based on their symptoms. You have to be able to draw them out and say, okay, I understand from these symptoms, this is what I have to do. So you have to have that in your head. That has to become cold, where no matter what's going on, no matter what's rattling you, you're able to stop, focus, and look at those things. So I always think training is very important.
yes,
And
it is.
I love, when I was reading a few things, like there's a few boxers I mentioned in my book, and Usain Bolt, he's that runner, the fastest runner.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Mike Tyson is another one, and Joshua Anthony. I quote these individuals. All three of them in separate interviews mentioned, when they were asked, they said that the fighting was the easy part. Or in Usain Bolt, he said the competition was the easy part. And they all were confused. They said the training was the hardest part. Training leading up to that was much harder than the actual incident. And because when you're training for everything. You need to know it all down. So now
Yeah.
when you get there and one of these little things happens, you're good to go. You're able to handle that. So I think that is very important. Uh, Along with training is making things a habit. Um, you know, the way our habits are very important. And maybe I can illustrate this for you with this example. I don't know if you remember the first time you ever drove a car.
Yeah, I
Um,
do.
so the first time I ever drove a car, I was in Brooklyn, New York. That's where I was born and raised.
Yeah.
And we had to take a class with this car person, and he puts me on the Belt Parkway. Very first time, I mean, I'm holding on to that steering wheel. I don't know how I didn't break it. I was terrified. And even after your second, third, fourth, fifth, you're looking around. I used to change lanes. Like I tear the wheel real hard first, then some of my friends in the car are like, "What is wrong with you? This is not how you change lanes." But what happens over time as you continually do that? Like you could get in a car right now, right? You don't think about putting your foot on the brake, right? You don't say, I got to stick the key in and turn it or press the button, however it does. You don't tell yourself that anymore. It's just automatic. It's done. You could drive and do 7 other different things. I don't recommend that, but you could be listening to the radio, talking on the phone, looking at your hair, whatever it is. because it's become so natural to you. You've done it over and over and over again. And that's the key to success with training. If you train in the things that you're going to come across, where it becomes so second nature, so easy, that when you come across something like that, it's automatic. You don't have to worry about it as much. And the final thing I would say, Vickie, is something I really, really deeply believe in, and that is caring about people, caring about humanity. It's so important. I'm given a job to lead you. Why? Because my bosses thought either I passed the test or they thought I was qualified, whatever the reason is. I'm not better than you. I'm just put into that position. Now, my job should be to make you excel in your job. First and foremost, for the company, whether it's a fire service or the business, right? The CEO doesn't hire a manager to make things worse for his company, right? He wants the manager to take those individuals and help them to excel, maybe even take his job or go from there, right? So you really want your people to excel. And when you care about people, that's what you do. Like when I walk into my crew and I view them that like they're my family, I would never treat my son this way, right? I wouldn't berate my son. I wouldn't start a rumor about my son. I
Yes.
wouldn't do all these different things. So I'm not going to do that to you because I care about you and I want to see you succeed. And what else that does for me is it makes the customer satisfaction go through the roof. If my whole crew loves humanity and wants to care for them. And that was something I
Yes.
was very big with. I love taking care of my customers. It was the joy of all joys when I could show up on a scene and someone just called 911 and their life has just gotten wrecked. And that's the reason why they call 911. But yet we show up and we make them feel so good, so comforted that it's a shocking experience for them that they're like, okay, I'm taken care of. I love that. And it was something I wanted to transfer to those I led. And if you're leading someone and they know that you care about them, Vickie, they trust you.
That's
And if
right.
they can trust you, then they'll follow you. They'll do what the things that you're asking them to do. So and that is another thing that unites. That was always a big thing with me. I wanted to unite my crew. I wanted to unite my department. I wanted to unite my town. I would love to unite my country if there was some way to do so. So I would say those are the three big things right there that I really love in
Yeah.
leadership and also uniting people.
And I want to make this so clear to everybody listening because I think this point that he makes is so important. And right now we're looking at EMS. So now let's make it applicable to the world right now because I think what you said is so, so important. And if you didn't hear it, I think you should move that cursor back a little bit, push that play button again, and listen again to these three tips. The reason I say this is because the top three issues I think are in the world right now. Number one is the lack of trust. The lack of trust is a big deal. It's killing everything, whether it's relationships or businesses, the economy, lack of trust. And that lack of trust has been escalated by situations of mass shootings and things like that. Those things are there. The second thing I think is very big is uncertainty. Like there isn't a sure path to the other side. The third thing that I think is really playing a whole lot of havoc on the world as it is this stability of countries right now. The political landscape of every country doesn't matter where you are right now. And if you're looking at leadership, there is something about being able to comfort people that will put you at the top. Because in order for people to feel comforted, they have to begin to trust you. And if you're authentic, if you're actually willing to serve people, help people in a loving, kind, and genuine way, it is going to be the most important skill set you can have. Now, here's why. We're entering the age of AI, and they talk about deep fakes. And Cody Sanchez on her channel, on her YouTube channel, put out a really exquisite example of this. And it was about the Met Ball. And Selena Gomez was going to the Met Ball. And Selena Gomez started in a blue dress to go to the Met Ball. And this blue dress was gorgeous and it was a designer. But then when she got to the Met Ball, she was in a completely different gown by another designer. So it looked like she had hired that two designers had hired her to show off this dress, but instead she went to this dress. And the truth was that Selena Gomez never went to the Met Ball. The whole video was made up to make it look like she went here and here, and she didn't even show up at that event. So the deep fakes and the confusion of that was that, the person who was trying to badmouth Selena by saying, you got two dresses to go to the Met Ball by two designers instead of one dress like everybody else. I mean, that's a celebrity angst. So it's this versus this. But Selena was never there. And these deep fake videos are coming up, and there's going to be politicians, political, you know, whatever political view or point of view at that time, all of these things are going to be playing on people's heads. They're not going to know the difference between the truth and untruth. And when people try to figure out, if you're going through a maze and you don't know what the truth is, when somebody hands you directions, are these directions real or fake? You can either become more lost or not. That leadership skills that he's talking about right now, about comforting people, that your position as a leader isn't about being the best, being right. It's about being humble and saying, we'll get through this together. We got to find the map. We got to do this, having a servant heart. And I think it comes from a firefighter, but it's applicable to everything right now. And
Yeah.
that's the reason we're talking about it. We're taking these skills and we're moving them and applying them to everything right now, because that is going to be the future. We're going to have a moment where we're going to have leadership that everyone can apply to their lives. And this is what I thought was your point there was so important, John. When I was listening to it, I thought, yes. And this is now and in the future. Now and in the future. I want to know, I'm looking at, let's say you're just listening to this right now. And if you're listening right now, when I ask this question, the first thing is go get his book. And we'll put is it on Amazon, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yeah.
You just go to Amazon and get yourself a copy of that book. That's the first thing. You want to read that book. The second thing I think is we start learning leadership skills by leading ourselves first. What are the three things we should look at in ourselves that will make us better leaders of ourselves? The first thing you said was being humble. That's what I did, being humble. And that's great. How do we become more humble? And what are two other things that you think would help us transform into better individuals by leading ourselves?
Well, this this might sound funny, but we're all surrounded usually by people who care about us. And so I would start the first place. I'm blessed. I've been married 30 years now to the greatest woman on earth.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's the woman who changed my life, set me in a new course, new direction when we met. And we've been thrilled ever since. And I have two kids I love more than anything. And where I'm blessed when I say that is that they don't hold back in telling me when I'm wrong. So, so I would say one of the first places you could start is going to your inner circle and asking them that very question. Am I a humble person? Do you see me as an individual with humility? Or do you see me as a person who lacks the humility? And if so, where is that? And so the greatest thing we could do is always self-examination. But sometimes individuals who watch us all the time have a very good viewpoint. and they can give you some examples of such things. So I would start there. That's a good place to start. Say, what type of father am I? What type of husband, or or wife, or mate, or partner, whatever it may be. What type of friend am I? What type of sibling am I? I would start in those manners. And if you're leading individuals, if you're already in that position, ask them. It doesn't hurt to ask them. How do you view me? Or what are the things that you see? Am I humble in this area? Another area I would really get to is reading. Reading really helped me out so much.
Amen.
I try to read about 36 books a year. It's my goal. I'm a slow reader, so but boy, Vickie, did I learn so much about myself. When you read the stories of some things that people have been through,
Yeah.
read Anne Frank, Diary of Anne Frank,
Yeah.
and then tell yourself that your life stinks.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can do that, then I don't know, something's wrong. This girl was going through this whole situation. She's a child, and she writes this thing in her diary. She says something to the effect that, life is basically what we make out of it and what we think of it. We could complain about the situation, or we can make it better. So reading really helped me to refine a lot of the issues I had. And boy, did I have so many. And I still do. I'm still never ending working on myself. And then continuous self-examination. Don't let it go. Don't stop. You're asking individuals, you're working on those things. You have to have a goal. You have to set out that goal. You know, Jim Rohn, one of
Jim Rohn, I love him.
yeah, me too. One of the things he
Real
said
good.
I really love, I keep it on my desk. He said, we all must suffer from one of two pains: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The
Yeah.
difference in the discipline is the weights. Difference is discipline weighs ounces, whereas regret weighs tons. And so it takes work, and you want to keep going back and keep doing that. Boy, I was just telling my friend the other day, I was talking to him, I was like, I constantly try to work on my humility. I pray to God to humble me all the time. I ask my family members about my humility, and yet I still have problems with it. It's still an ongoing issue that I just want to come across as an individual. I want to be authentically humble and really care about other individuals. So I would say in those areas, those are three ways that can help get you going, in the right direction for humility.
I love that. I love that so much. It's like um, the practice of becoming a better person. It's a life skill you just always have. I love that you read books. Love it, love it, love it. I do too. And it's good that if you read books, because there are more books that I read than I write. So I'm up to 43 books now, and I read as
Wow.
many as you do the whole time. Well, I'm a little older and I had more
Excellent.
time to write books.
That's
But I
excellent.
mean, it's like the reader and the writer go together. And that to me is a big deal. There's a lot of people who want to write a book and don't even read a book ever. So they don't really know if their book is good or not.
Right.
And so the thing about reading and learning is the best way to continue. And there are great video platforms out there.
Yes. Yep.
But I think that leadership is now I want to get really clear. As long as the AI is coming, we are wiping out experts at done before, because you can type in your question into AI right now and get an answer from it.
Yep.
And so because of that, there are not going to be as many experts as more professionals. And the professional view, the professional coming up, has leadership skills as their number one resource. So you can't, compete with AI in a 6-month period or a year period. It's learning faster than you ever will. The reason skills are so important is because leadership skills are applicable in the now. In the now. So we were talking before we got on the show, and I was like, oh, yeah, when you're EMS, you get a call and it'll say there's a car accident. It'll say there's a victim or two. It'll say very little. You're just trying to gather enough and deploy the right EMS person out there, whether that's an ambulance, a police officer, or a fire truck, and usually all three end up out there. But when you get there, you have to assess very quickly. You assess based on what he said, practice. The more you practice, the more effective you are when it hits the fan or you get the call or you're driving that forward. That to me is some of the most important skills that you can have right now, because with AI and some of the other things, we have some good things that are happening. But leadership lets you either deal with how it hit the fan or where the opportunity is, how you can get that opportunity faster than everybody else because you're using your leadership skills all the time and you're training yourself over and over again. Reading books, one way to train yourself. Read as many books as you can. And I don't mean fiction books, I mean nonfiction
Right.
books
Okay.
about leaders and things, getting that self educated. I want to talk about leadership in the form of, because we just talked about Jim Rohn and the difference between regret and discipline. And I want to talk about individual discipline. I know that when you're a firefighter, you have to meet a certain standard. If you don't meet these standards, you're out. And the thing about the masses, if you will, or lay people, is that they don't have standards that they have to meet. Maybe they have to go to work Monday through Friday, but they don't have other standards that they have to meet. Now, what I would like to know is if you could put three standards that you have to meet as a firefighter, EMS, etc., that are applicable over here, what would be a few of them that you would say continuous training is the most important aspect of this? Like these three things, continuous training will help you anywhere.
Well, one of the things I discuss in my book is knowing your job. So
Mm,
this goes back to what you were speaking about earlier about having individuals trust you. So imagine getting on scene to a fire and you're telling somebody, okay, I want you to go grab the hose and go in here into this furnace and put this fire out. That individual knows that's not the proper thing to do, but you don't know that because you haven't done all the training you were supposed to do. So I'd
yeah.
say first and foremost is knowing your job. Now, that doesn't matter what job you're in. It really doesn't matter. It could be the fire service. It could be any job that you do. You should excel at knowing your job. And that's where training comes in, where you have to continue either to study whatever the job's SOPs are, operating procedures rather, or I did electrical for a couple of years. There's electrical things that you can study and get to learn and really put things together and understand how it goes. So I would say really knowing your job is very important. People are going to look to you and they're going to have that trust in you and they're going to really sit back. And because when you're asking someone else to put their life on the line on your order,
Yeah.
they have to have that trust in you. If they know that you don't know your job, well, you're going to see hesitation. You're going to hear them go, what about this? They're going to, they're going to stammer. You're going to see them talking to each other. But if they trust you because you know your job, because you're constantly training, you're doing your stuff, they're
Yeah.
going to go like lightning, bolt in there and do it, knock it out. And when they do it, because you were right, it draws them even closer to you. There's a
Yeah.
camaraderie. It's incredible. You get a bond. We'll go out to do something and it'll whip us physically because it's demanding. And when we come back, we that's how you feel. There's that love bond right there. We just went to war together and we came back, and it's a really neat thing. So
Yeah.
knowing your job well, I would say, is very, very important. For us in the fire service, and I do believe that this applies to everyone else, physically being in shape is
Mhm.
important. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
you you have to. That's part of our job. It's great that you know your job, but if you can't pull the hose and get it there and put the fire out because you're not physically able to do it, then what good are you? Again, people are going to look down to you. And you might have office jobs where you say, okay, well, I don't have to necessarily do a physical job, but still, when you care about yourself and you're taking care of yourself physically, you feel better, first of all. You think clearer. Your mind is set. You're getting proper sleep. when you physically work out and stuff, you get the endorphins flowing and things like that. All these things bring a level of calmness to you, a level of um, confidence in your ability to do stuff. So I would say that is another big part of it. You want to stay, physically fit, making sure that you're able to do the job. And I don't know, like depending on what your job is, it might require you to do certain physical things that other jobs don't. So that
Yeah.
in that specific area might be the case. Um, I, these are things I think it it people are always looking at you. They're always looking at you. They're always looking, even if you don't realize it. They're always looking at you and evaluating you. And finally, the way you speak. It's
Yes.
unfortunately people sometimes gossip. They may start
Yes.
rumors. They may badmouth someone. They may just speak negative. Oh, it's raining today, or oh, we got to do this. We got to do this drill. I can't believe the bosses are telling us to do this. As a leader, you're going to be given orders, or however it transpires in other businesses, direction maybe. In the fire service, it's an order. In the police department, you got orders. If you didn't follow an order, I'll tell you a really quick funny story. When I retired out a few years ago, and I'm still doing work in the fire service because I love it, but I help my wife with her real estate business. So I got my real estate license, and the first part of it, after I got in, I went into the place where her broker is, and there was a mandatory meeting at 11 o'clock, then another mandatory meeting at 12 o'clock to go to. So I'm at the 11 o'clock meeting, and I'm looking at my watch. It's 11:50, and he's going. This gentleman is speaking, and I'm starting to sweat, and I'm like 11:55, 11:57, and he looks at me. He's like, "John, what is the matter with you?" And I said, I'm sorry, I got a mandatory meeting at 12 o'clock. He's like, all right, well, just go. I'm like, but I thought this was a mandatory meeting. He goes, no, you can do whatever you want here. Go. You got another meeting, go to the other meeting. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm just not used to this. The fire service, when they say mandatory meeting, that means if you're not there, you're fired. You know what I mean? Or you're suspended. So it's whatever the direction is that you get, you sometimes it's not palatable direction from your superiors. We would often have things come down and said, all right, you have to go do this. You have to go train tonight at, like at 11 o'clock at night. And we've been working hard all day long. And the guys are like, come on, what is this about? You have to be able to sell that, and you have to be able to sell it in a way that you're not kissing the boss's butt. You know what I mean? You're not trying to suck up to the boss or in any way. At the same time, you're trying to say, look, this is our job. I get it. I know we don't want to go at 11 o'clock at night, but this is what we do. We excel. We do these things, and we're going to make it happen. It's not always the best thing without putting the superior down. But more importantly, not focusing on any negatives. We are a family in the fire service. So we sit around, we eat breakfast, lunch, dinner together. We
Yeah.
sleep in a dorm together. Everybody's husbands and wives and kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews. You know them all. You know all the stories. My kid was at school today. He's doing this, that, and the other thing. You got to be able to make sure that you don't go down the negative road, because that could really destroy things. And look what's happening in our country today. We're a great people, but we're so divided, more divided than I've ever seen in my entire life.
Me
And
too.
not just divided, but almost divided with animus, like vitriol. Like, why do we have to have such? You have a different opinion than me. Then that's okay. You're a different person, but
Yeah.
I care about you, and I want to see you succeed. I
Yeah.
want to see us succeed as Americans, so we can set a great example for the rest of the world,
Yeah.
and all of us could come together. So I think finally, the way we speak, we have to watch our words and the things that we say always.
One of the best books I ever read, ever, it's kind of like my Bible on communications, is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. And in it, one of the key skill sets that you learned is saying what you want to say gently, in a humble way, in a connected way, and being curious about what somebody actually thinks and who they are and what their definition of the word they're using is, not the one you're projecting onto them. And that level of kindness and compassion that you can learn through communication will build a leadership skill that will take you anywhere. Because, one of the things you mentioned, John, it was like, how do you get a warrior as great as, a Navy SEAL to do your bidding if they don't feel like you're even worthy of, it's like I don't trust you. Well, I know that there are a lot of great people right now that want to help the world, that really want to help people become more. And you have to use the type of leadership that will move the mountain of people forward, and they have to feel like they're moving forward with you, not being lectured at by you. And I love what you were talking about, your health. And I love what you were talking about. uh, Firefighters live together, they eat together, they know each other's family. And I was like, it's a tribe. It's a
Yeah.
tribe of people that have trained on how to have your back. And in that moment, whether you have a difference of opinion or maybe two people are angry, everything gets dropped and the tribe gets taken care of. And that's where you learn to drop your ego in that part of that leadership skill, because it's the well-being of humanity, or the well-being of the people working. It's like knowing your job. Oh my God, that was so good. It's like you don't know your job, and this guy knows your job, and you're like, hi, take the hose off and run into that house, and it's burning way beyond recognition, and put it all out. Impossible to do. And I'm like, yes, there's a sense of responsibility to the tribe that makes the whole unity work. I feel like, John, that's how America used to be.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
breaks my heart right now when I'm listening to you and thinking, oh my gosh, how do we get that back?
Yeah.
How do
Well,
we get that back?
it's a responsibility for you, Vicky, for me, and for all your listeners, all of us. When we start with ourselves and we set the example, others will be drawn to that. When we show that love with kindness, every single day you bump into people. You go to the grocery store, you go to a restaurant, and there's a server there. You're driving, you're getting gas, you're at a Costco, whatever it may be. You're always bumping into people. When you set that example of you're a humble individual, you're a kind individual, you're here to serve and take care of others. That's how I'm going to try to do it my best, to try to help, to set that example, to talk to others, help others to get onto the same page. And I've seen it begin to work. I've seen others start changing a little bit, that are around in my circle, and being a little bit more open. Okay, so they're a little different. Yeah. But look at all these good qualities that they have. Let's draw them closer to us. And so I think it's the first and foremost thing we could do, like just like leadership, is we start with ourselves, right? We set that wonderful example. And I appreciate what you're doing with your show. I think that's an excellent way to reach out to so many people.
Thank you. When I started the show, my goal was to bring the best experts from around the world so that people had help in their business, their family, and their life. And today, your book, Leadership Redefined by Fire, Leadership Redefined by Fire. This is the time where it's needed most. If you're looking for skill sets that you're going to need to move your company, to help your family thrive, to help yourself through a hard time, or an illness of some sort, this is the kind of book you want to read. It's Leadership Refined by Fire. These are people who have been there, done that, literally gotten PTSD over a period of time. And I know he's got a second book on PTSD coming out. When's that gonna drop? When's that? You heard it first on the Coffee
Yeah.
Break Show. When's that book dropping?
It's interesting, Vicky, and thank you for your words about my book. I appreciate that very much. This sounds crazy, but I'm actually having a difficult time getting through the book myself, from issues that I've had, that I've faced through the years. And there's such a wealth of information out there. I want to make sure that everything is done exactly the way the medical field says it's to be done. Now, I initially started it and I wrote 90% of it based on the fire service, but then I stepped back after seeing a lot of these mass shootings and things like that, and I said, you know what? Let's look at an example. For example, the Tennessee police officers, right, that went in and was successful in mitigating that situation. We applaud those officers, right, for what they did. However, now stop for a moment and think. Specifically, let's say those two officers right in the front. In the next 10, 20, 30 years, every time those officers smell crayons or see a picture with crayons on it or smell a school,
Oh, yeah,
or something like that, all of this is going to come right back to them. And
absolutely.
all of those feelings that they felt and are going through. And I know the nation may be split and there's pros and cons towards police officer. My dad was a New York City police officer for 20 years. So we're a service family. So I greatly appreciate and applaud the police officers, the things that they go through. So I stepped back and I wanted to make the book to apply also to police, firefighters, nurses, dispatchers. Dispatchers have to hear
Yes.
people screaming on the
The
phone and
underserved heroes of the world, the under-recognized
yes, without a
servers
doubt.
of the world. I
What
mean, they're the best. You're right.
Yeah, so I wanted to make it more encompassing to all the emergency services that help us in America. And so I went backwards and I'm revamping it. So I'm hoping, Vickie, my goal is the next 2 months. So I will let you know when I have it done. But I'm hoping within 2 months to be done with it. So that's where I'm at, and I'm hoping I can get through my own issues. I still have a lot of calls that come up when I start writing things in my head
Me too. I
that I
still
try to
have it
work through.
years and years and years later.
Yeah. I
It's
remember
you manage
on one. I'm sorry. I
you
apologize.
just manage them better
Yeah. You
over time.
mentioned one time, and I hope it's okay to mention this in one of your podcasts about a time that you went through something and your father was there next to you and he asked you, "What are you thinking at this moment?" And you mentioned that helped you to get control of your anxiety, that you were aware of things constantly, and that's a state called hypervigilance
Yeah,
from the jobs that we do, the
that's
police,
right.
fire. You always have to be aware because you're on guard, and that actually happens to children too when they're in a situation.
That's right. If
Right.
that child abuse is, it's the same thing.
Yep.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that book will be able to help. In your case, you mentioned that your dad had helped you, and
Yeah,
it could have been because you loved your dad. You trusted. This was a
that's
trusted
right. I
individual in
did.
your part.
That's
Yes.
correct.
And so that enabled you. So I'm hoping I can translate that to others when I don't have all the answers, and I won't because I'm not a medical professional, and because on top of that, there's so many different varying ways that we are affected. But I'm going to be listing all kinds of ways that they can get help, and that's the
That's
goal, is so that situation they'll be able to get help.
Just a really quick thing here for those
Sure.
listening. What he's referring to is a show where I talked about having PTSD, trauma, fear, etc., and hypervigilance. And my dad told me one time, he asked me, he said, what are you feeling now? And I was like, God, anxiousness and fear, but I was hyper aware. And he said, I wonder if you could keep the awareness and figure out how to drop the fear. And I was like, ooh, that is a big key to success right there. How can I keep the gift and let go of the stress? That's what his next book is going to help those of you out there. Now, so many people have gone through so much trauma. Trauma is really rising in the world, lots of it. And as we go through, I promise on whatever shows I'm going to be doing, that we will be talking about how to go through trauma. And I'll have John back on when his second book comes out and
Thank
we
you.
have that PTSD conversation. I do have some things I want to share with my audience today that I'm a little nervous to share about. I've been doing the Coffee Break show for 5 years now, and I'm coming up to my 600th show, 600
Fantastic.
shows. And
Fantastic.
I want to tell you all that I love you so much. And for those 40,000 or plus more people that download this show and listen to it every single week, thank you so much. I love you all so much. I will be closing the Coffee Break show out when I hit my 600th show. I will be sculpting a new show that is going to come out, but I'm going to retire the coffee break show, and I have enjoyed doing it. The last day of the coffee break show, I brought the fan favorite over every show. I'm having Isabel Tyranny go live with us on the last show. And the next show, I will tell you more about. I'm going to take about 30 days off because we have to categorize this show and then, put that show on. And I will send these subscribe links out to all of you. I want to say it has been absolutely my greatest joy serving you over these 5 years and having people like John on, especially right now, because there's so much trauma in the world. There's so much uncertainty, distrust. There's so many things that are coming into this world that need focused leadership skills. And in order for me to continue having focused leadership skills, I have to move the topic of the show to what's mattering now, what matters now. I will continue to have the best experts from around the world on my shows to talk with you and help us through this unusual time in history. I'll have people like John Cuomo over again and again to help us walk through this uncertainty into a new world, which neither he nor I even knows what it's going to look like in the future. But I promise you, just like John and I have served you over these years, whether it's through a fire or a car accident or anything, we will continue to walk with you through this unknown and figure it out as we go along. And I just want to say, John, I want to stop and thank you for your service. When you
Thank you.
think about Brooklyn and you think about New York and you think about Florida, you think about big states that have lots of people. And of course, 9/11, every firefighter that sacrificed themselves, every server that was out there, you know that these people loved humanity. And your service to humanity is continuing on. It's like you haven't stopped serving the world. And I just want to tell you that makes me happy to know you. And I'm absolutely melted in my heart at your willingness to do all the work you do to make yourself better so that you can help more people. And
Well,
I
thank
want to
you.
say thank you because that's the real work right now. The more John people we have out there, John Cuomo's in the world that we have out there who are their leadership skills, loving kindness skills, compassion skills, all the skills that he's learning. Imagine what the world could be like. Imagine. John, do you actually have a place or a number of something where people talk to you? Do you coach people? Do you have any of that going on for maybe ex firefighters or ex EMS people or people who just want to learn leadership skills?
I'm working on putting together something for that. So anyone's welcome to come to my website, which is www.fdleadership.com. And if they're interested in me coming and talking and discussing either in their department or the business or anything else like that, or honestly, even if they just want to have a friendly conversation, I'd love to help anyone in any way. So, like you said, and I appreciate your words so very much. And I thank you for your service as well, both in the PD and what you're doing now.
Thank you.
But yeah, I'd love to help in any way. So there's a contact me there spot. You're welcome to reach out to anytime.
Awesome. Listen, this is always the coffee break show. There are 5 more left. Enjoy all 5 of them. And then there's going to be big, huge announcements, big, huge, cool things. Thank you for being a part of the coffee break show today. I promise I'll be back next week. We'll have a really awesome guest, and I'll see you then. Thanks.